All right, now that we're a couple minutes past the top of the hour, I figure we can get rolling. So welcome everyone to today's webinar hosted by the NOAA Library. I'm Caitlin, standing in for Katie Poser, who typically hosts this seminar series. We are excited to have Travis, Kate, and Charles here to present today.
Welcome all. My name is Travis Grout. I'm an economist in NOAA's Office for Coastal Management. I'm joined by Charles Goodhue, a vice president and senior economist with ERG Group. Kate Quigley, the economics team lead at the Office for Coastal Management, will be joining us for the question and answer session at the end of this presentation. So, once again, this webinar is an introduction to NOAA's Economics National Ocean Watch database, or ENOW. I'm going to start out by explaining what ENOW is, how it was built, and how it can be used to understand the coastal and ocean economy at the national, state, territory, or county level. Briefly, ENOW provides an annual snapshot of the ocean economy in a given area. The core ENOW dataset reports 4 economic indicators for 6 economic sectors that depend on the ocean or Great Lakes. These 6 sectors captured by ENOW are living resources, which includes commercial fishing and aquaculture, marine construction, oil and natural gas extraction, marine transportation, ship and boat building, and tourism and recreation. We also have, for specifically the U.S. territories, 3 additional sectors that we developed as kind of a pilot. The government, research and education, and energy sectors, which I'll talk about a bit more later. For each of these 6 sectors, and for the ocean economy as a whole, ENOW reports the number of establishments, number of jobs, the amount of wages paid, and the contribution to gross domestic product of each sector and the ocean economy as a whole. This tool is intended to help describe your area's blue economy, provide a baseline for planning and development efforts. It can be useful in advocacy for the sectors and industries within the ocean economy, and it can be useful in describing your local economy's dependence on the ocean and industry's relationship to healthy coasts and waters. Now, I mentioned that I should have mentioned that the ENOW dataset goes back to 2005 for most of the United States. You can access data as early as 2005 and as late as 2021, which is the current, most recent data year that we have to work with. However, for most of that time, ENOW did not cover the 5 U.S. territories. About 3 years ago, in 2021, the Office for Coastal Management started work with ERG Group to extend ENOW to cover U.S. territories and explore the potential for adding 3 new sectors to the ENOW dataset, starting with the U.S. territories. I'm going to be highlighting ENOW data for the Pacific territories during the rest of this presentation. If you're not calling in from the territories, don't worry. This also serves as a good introduction to ENOW data and tools available for the rest of the country, but that will be the primary focus of the things that I'm showing you for the rest of this evening. This project relied on a lot of help from local partners, and while I can't possibly thank all of the people and organizations that contributed, I'd especially like to highlight the data and expertise that we received from experts at the Guam Bureau of Statistics and Plans, the University of Guam, American Samoa Department of Commerce, the American Samoa Power Authority, CNMI Department of Commerce, and Northern Mariana College. Similarly, we owe special thanks to the Puerto Rico Planning Board, the Puerto Rico DDEC, Sea Grant, U.S. Virgin Islands Bureau of Economic Research, and the University of the Virgin Islands. Very briefly, the ENOW expansion was a 3-year project. I'm not going to spend a lot of time walking you through the entire process, but a core part of the development of the expanded dataset, it was public outreach and consultation. Kate and Charles deserve quite a lot of credit for their hard work in putting together annual public workshops for each of the territories and the Commonwealth included in the expanded data set. There were quite a few public meetings in the territories, which attracted, I believe, 106 stakeholders over all 6 meetings. And Charles and his team led a large number of one-on-one calls with specific stakeholders. But enough about the process. What can ENOW actually tell us about the ocean economies, particularly of the Pacific territories, and how can you use that information? Well, a good place to start, if you're new to ENOW, are these 2-page summaries of the ocean economy of each U.S. territory. These are available from our Digital Coast website. I will put a direct link in the chat, or you can just Google NOAA and ENOW, and that will take you to the relevant page. These are intended to provide quick highlights for every territory in the data set. These look somewhat similar for each of the territories covered. So very briefly, at the top of the page here, you'll see some key economic statistics for the territory economy as a whole. Underneath that, we have a bit more information on how employment breaks down, with an emphasis on, in this case, specifically the Cannery, but for other territories, different ocean economy sectors. Below that, we give some basic statistics on the total ocean economy captured in ENOW, and some sector-specific information at the bottom of this page. And moving on to the second page of each of these 2-page fact sheets. You'll see some more information on economic trends at the bottom of the page here. And since this is for American Samoa, we have a bit of supplemental information on trends in the tuna canning industry. Moving on to Guam, you'll see it's quite similar. Did I move too far ahead? I did. And so again, at the top of the page, some information on the Guam territorial economy as a whole. Beneath that, get into the ocean economy, followed by sector-specific information. For Guam, we highlighted some relevant information from the dataset on tourism trends, highlighting the impact of COVID-19 on Guam's tourism industry. And finally, for the Northern Mariana Islands ocean economy, the same general layout. Again, we highlight the impact on the ocean economy. And at the bottom of the page here, some of the broad economic trends that we can see from the data. So what sort of stories can this sort of information help you to tell? Why do we put this together in the first place? Well, this sort of information can help you to address questions like, how was your local economy affected by COVID, hurricane, other sorts of shocks that are observable in the data? How quickly has it recovered, and what sort of industries were impacted? It can allow you to answer questions about how big your ocean-related tourism industry is, how many jobs and what amount of wages were earned. How does that compare to the territorial economy or local economy as a whole? You can compare the ocean economy of a particular state, county, territory to other territories, other states, other counties, to both highlight the strengths of the local ocean economy, its particular distinctive characteristics, and in certain cases, perhaps identify opportunities for growth. More broadly, a few more applications for ENOW data could include folks working on economic planning who can use ENOW to identify key sectors and trends in their marine economy. That can be helpful in policy decisions, resource allocation, prioritizing particular types of projects or infrastructure to meet your local needs. In a similar vein, ENOW data can be used in market analysis, helping to identify growth opportunities within marine sectors. ENOW can be a powerful tool for communicating the importance of marine resources to coastal communities, to local policymakers and governments. Educators have used ENOW in curriculum development. Civil society groups have used ENOW data to push for relevant policy changes. Disaster preparedness. Local data on coastal industries is quite helpful in highlighting economic vulnerabilities for folks who are preparing disaster response and recovery planning. And finally, this data set is valuable as a starting point for more in-depth analyses of trends and patterns in the marine economy, or developing a baseline for economic analyses. You're not going to be able to, say, do a benefit cost analysis or a regional industry analysis based on what you find in ENOW alone. But this really does give you a head start in establishing a baseline and gives you access to some strong historical data. Give you a couple more examples of how ENOW has been used by state and local organizations to date. A few years back, the Rhode Island Sea Grant used ENOW data integrated with local data to estimate the size and importance of the marine economy, and this report on the value of Rhode Island's blue economy. The county level, Los Angeles County and Puget Sound have incorporated ENOW data recently into economic impact analyses. And let's see, not sure how easily I'm going to be able to play this video, unfortunately. Let's see, Caitlin, can you are you able to hit play on this? I don't seem to be able to get it.
You know, it's not giving me an option either. Do you have a link to this video? And I can see if I can pop that. Or do you play it from your computer and share the screen? Would that work?
Tell you what, how about I do that at the end of the presentation? This is just going to be a quick overview of how to use ENOW Explorer, which is the most accessible way to get at some of this data. Once we get through our other prepared slides, I'll share my screen using ENOW Explorer and just do sort of a live demo. So I apologize for that technical glitch, but moving along. A little bit later, when I'm able to do that walkthrough with you, this is the sort of display you'll see in ENOW. This is the employment landing page for Guam, and you'll see that on this page we have the employment in the total ocean economy in Guam highlighted. About 9,000 people work in the ocean economy in Guam. That's about 15.5% of everyone working in the territory, and compared to all other U.S. states and territories, Guam ranks 32nd of 35 states and territories in terms of ocean employment. Along that left-hand side there, you'll see a number of icons. The employment icon is highlighted right now, but if you were to move down through those icons, you can see the number of establishments in the ocean economy, the wages paid to workers in the ocean economy, and the contribution to GDP of all those workers, all those establishments down at the bottom. At the top of the page, if you going from left to right, you can select your state, territory, or county of interest, and to the right, those icons along the top of the page allow you to toggle between sectors of the marine economy. So if you're interested in marine transportation or tourism and recreation, you can dig down into the statistics specific to that sector. And at the far right, you can select your year of interest. Again, for most U.S. states and counties, the ENOW dataset goes back to 2005. This being the first year that we have released territories data, we were able to work back 3 years. We have data from 2019 to 2021, and we'll keep these updated annually as we release prepare our other ENOW releases. This is another illustration. I believe this is the Northern Mariana Islands. This is wages paid to, this screen is for wages paid to workers in the ocean economy. Another thing that I should mention is that sector bar chart right in the middle. That shows the relative contribution of different sectors within the marine economy to that total figure, to those total wages paid. And the stacked bar graph on the bottom there is provided for basis of comparison. That's the national distribution of equivalent ocean wages. And finally, this will again perhaps make more sense when I'm able to do the live demonstration. But if you scroll down a little bit on all of these screens, you'll be able to see a trend line for reflecting historical data and for relevant categories, GDP and wages broken down on a per employee, per person basis. Now, as you look around the ENOW dataset, particularly for areas with a relatively small population, you will see occasional lines of data that are marked as suppressed. So what does that mean? Well, ultimately, a lot of the data in the ENOW dataset comes from surveys of businesses, and that information collected in surveys is privileged. Potentially, this is sensitive business information. We cannot release that information to the public. So if in a particular county or territory there are only a small number of establishments in a given sector, we can't release economic indicators for that sector, simply because someone would be able to use that as a proxy for a specific business. However, that information is still folded into the aggregated totals at a territory or national level. So the so for instance, the total ocean economy employment figures would include employment in quote unquote suppressed sectors. That note, I'm going to hand things over to Charles to go through some of the more specific findings from the territories.
Great, thank you, Travis. All right, so I'm going to go through pretty quickly because there are a lot of slides. It's a lot of data, but just pointing out a few key trends or key findings as we go through slide by slide. So first we have American Samoa's ocean economy by GDP. This just includes the two largest sectors that are not suppressed. The living resources sector here is the largest sector, but because the cannery is the only business in that sector, it is suppressed. So we know the total value of the ocean economy by GDP, or gross domestic product, but we can't see the living resources sector individually. But as you can see here, GDP, and this is sort of the total annual GDP, does go down a bit in 2020. Again, start of COVID, starts to rebound a bit in 2021. All right. In terms of ocean economy, number of establishments, so these are sort of those individual businesses. These are snapshots as of mid-March of each of the years. So we see pretty consistent numbers, 50, 58, and 57 total establishments within the ocean economy across all 6 of sort of those traditional ENOW sectors that Travis had pointed out earlier. Going to employment, similarly, employment is a snapshot of full-time and part-time jobs as of mid-March of each of the years. So you do see a little bit of a decrease from 2019 to 2020, and then again a small increase from 2020 to 2021. As you'll see coming up, some of the economies that you'll see that are a little more reliant on tourism have a kind of much bigger trends, or much more exaggerated trends, as you sort of see the impact or the potential impact associated with COVID, or sort of from 2019, 2020 into 2021. But again, nothing too substantial in American Samoa. Finally, wages, and wages are totals over the course of the entire year for all of those full-time and part-time employees. You see a little bit of a downward trend from 52 million to about 49 to about 46 million in the total ocean economy as you go from 2019 to 2020 to 2021. So as Travis pointed out earlier as well, we did try to look into utilities, so sort of electric generation, research, and education, as well as government. We were able to get a rather complete set of utilities data from the American Samoa Power Authority. So this connection to the ocean here in American Samoa is primarily that the fuels are being imported in their entirety from marine transportation. So that's kind of your connection to American Samoa electricity generation. Again, for this, pretty flat from 2019 to 2020 in terms of GDP, and certainly a little bit of an uptick into 2021. Going to the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, CNMI. This is a much more tourism and recreation dependent economy, as you'll see similarly with Guam in terms of the percent of the ocean economy that is tourism and rec. And tourism and recreation certainly had, at least across the rest of the United States, and as you may see here, maybe a larger tie to the impacts of COVID. And there's certainly a lot of things going on here. Recovery from Typhoon Yutu that hit in 2018. So there's sort of that recovery going on, and certainly COVID in 2020 and those related impacts. So just in this 3-year time series, you can see that GDP went down quite substantially from 2019 to 2020, from 175 million to 110 million. And here again, we just show a few of the non-suppressed ocean economy sectors. But you'll see tourism and recreation in particular on a very sharp downward trend from 2019 to 2021, losing just about $45 million in GDP. Number of establishments, just as a refresh, establishments are a snapshot of the total number of businesses in the ocean economy as of mid-March. And that timing is kind of important here, where GDP and wages are the total across an entire year. Because the establishments are taken in mid-March, perhaps in 2020, March of 2020, that's when things started to shut down. So you may not have seen that sort of full impact of closures at that time, although you do start to see some decrease from 2019 to 2020, and then a further decrease in number of ocean economy establishments from 2020 to 2021. So I think one of the key takeaways here is that with establishments and employment, because those are snapshots of a month in time, sort of mid-March to mid-March, that timing is important, where GDP and wages are a total across an entire year. So they can somewhat tell different stories in that sense. Looking at employment, which again, a snapshot from mid-March, not much had changed from 2019 to 2020, from about 3,900 employed in the ocean economy to just under 3,800. But you'll see that drop, a very dramatic drop from about 3,800 to about 2,200 ocean economy full-time and part-time jobs. And you'll see that that was predominantly in the tourism and recreation sector, from about a little under 3,500 jobs to a little under 1,900 jobs. You'll actually see living resources and marine transportation had a little bit of a increase from 2020 to 2021, and actually quite a big jump in marine transportation from 175 to just about 250 jobs. Going to wages, again, these are totals over the entire year. You see sort of a continual drop from 69 million in wages to 50 million in wages to 39 million in wages. This includes both wages paid and fringe benefits for employees. Again, tourism and recreation, this is where the trend is sort of derived from. We go from 63 million in 2019 to about 44 million in 2020, down to 32 million in 2021, which is really driving that downward trend. And then finally wrapping up CNMI with the GDP of the supplemental ENOW sectors. So we worked with a few different entities here. We use census county business pattern data for electric power generation, and then also use the Department of Energy CNMI energy snapshot to remove solar energy from the electric sector data in census county business pattern. So we sort of see 89 million in 2019 to about 67 million in GDP. 2020 up a little bit in 2021 to about 70 million. We worked with the director of Division of Parks and Recreation under the Department of Land and Natural Resources to pull some government data that's related to the ocean economy. So we have data so far for 2019 and 2020 there of just over $1 million about for each year. And then we'd been working with the Northern Marianas College to look at grants that are related to the ocean economy to get some data from 2019 and 2021. Jumping to Guam, GDP. So again, this is year totals, total ocean economy, had a very dramatic jump from 2019 to 2020 from $686 million to $390 million. You actually see a little more of an uptick from 2020 to 2021 in Guam than you did CNMI. So you did see the increase from 390 to 509 million, and certainly a lot of different things going on. But again, it's sort of a nice use of how these indicators work to sort of see how recovery is happening in certain economies. Again, tourism and recreation, like CNMI, is the major driver here. You see that major dive from 470 million in 2019 to about 260 million in 2020, up about $40 million in GDP to right about 300 million in 2021. Marine transportation, relatively stable, a little bit of a dip in 2020, and then a little bit of an increase in 2021. And then marine construction actually continued to trend up from 2019 to 2020 to 2021. In terms of number of establishments, again, this is a snapshot in time as of mid-March. You sort of see a decrease in tourism and recreation from about 370 in 2019 to about 360 in 2020 to about 343 in 2021. And interestingly, and this is kind of the nature of a snapshot versus a year's total, when we go back to GDP, you see that 2021 is in fact higher than 2020. But in this data, because it's a snapshot just in March, and probably at this point in 2020, the number of establishments had not been greatly impacted by COVID. There was only a small drop. So I think, again, as many probably folks know from the real effects, a lot of the effects from COVID were later in the year, probably from April through December. The Guam ocean economy employment, again, snapshot in mid-March. You see just a very small drop at this point in time from 2019 to 2021 in sort of that mid-March snapshot. A very large drop as of March of 2021 to about a little over 8,000 in the tourism and recreation, dropping from about 13,000 employees in 2019 and 2020. That's really the major driver because you do actually see that in both marine transportation and marine construction, there was an upward trend from 2019 to 2020 and 2020 to 2021 in both of those sectors. Finally, wages. So these are, again, aggregates over the course of the entire year. A big drop from 2019 to 2020 and 2021, going from about 240 million down in 2019 in wages down to about 145 million in both 2020 and 2021. Again, leading the kind of overall trend in the change in total ocean economy wages, as total ocean economy wages were about 270 million in 2019. Those dropped about 90 million, give or take, to about 178 million in 2020 and 181 million in 2021. Going to the GDP of the supplemental ENOW sectors. So we worked with the University of Guam on ocean-related grants for research and education. So no data in 2019, but we do have data of just a little under 1 million in 2020, a little bit over 1 million in 2021 and 2022. We worked with for the government data, we worked with the Bureau of Statistics and Plans to look at ocean-related government data. So these could be, again, coastal management. It could be kind of water-related law enforcement. It could be preservation. Anything sort of related to the ocean would be captured in this government spending here. No strong trends, around 6 million each year, give or take a few 100,000. And then on the utility side, we worked with the Guam Power Authority to estimate utility, ocean related utilities, so sort of electric generation. A little drop from 2019 to 2020, about 170 million to 156 million, back up to about 180 million in 2021. So finally, this is just percent of the total ocean economy, and just to give a sense of the nature of each of these island territories or commonwealths. You'll see for CNMI, Guam, Puerto Rico, and USVI, that sort of lighter blue color is the predominant contribution to the total ocean economy. That's tourism and recreation. American Samoa, based on the ocean economy data, much of that is suppressed. We know the vast majority of that suppression to be living resources. It's a very different economy that's not tourism and recreation driven, like as to the same degree as the other four: CNMI, Guam, Puerto Rico, and USVI. You'll see Puerto Rico has a kind of stronger contribution in the marine transportation sector. Guam with a reasonably or a relatively large contribution from the marine construction. As Travis said earlier, when we do roll things up, sometimes it gets rid of some of that suppression. So when looking across all 5 islands, about 80% of the total GDP is tourism and recreation out of just these 6 ENOW sectors. About 14% of the GDP marine transportation, 4% is living resources, which we know to be an underestimate because this does not include self-employment in the living resources sector, 2% marine construction, and for the final 2 ENOW sectors, ship and boat building and repair, and offshore mineral extraction, that's less than 1%. Again, that's just across those 6 ENOW sectors. Those percentages are not associated with the 3 supplemental sectors or the rest of the economy. So Travis, with that, I'm going to kick things back over to you to close us out.
All right. Thank you very much, Charles. So, as I wrap things up, I'd like to highlight a few trainings that are offered by the Office for Coastal Management Economics team. We offer a series of trainings on kind of providing an introduction to economic analysis for coastal professionals. You don't need to have a background in social science coming into this. This is kind of your 101 level course. We have a training on telling a story about your local coastal economy and local coastal economic needs. And we can support more customized trainings reflecting your needs for further research and analysis. We provide a range of technical assistance to our various partners, local governments, specific communities, civil society groups, and nonprofits. If you have any questions or any questions about those, feel free to reach out to me or to Kate Quigley. If you search for just the Office for Coastal Management on Google and go to our Digital Coast page, we have a lot of information about our trainings and technical assistance offerings there. In addition to the territorial organizations and agencies that I mentioned earlier in the presentation, I'd like to give special thanks to the U.S. Census Bureau, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the Bureau of Economic Analysis, and the Center for the Blue Economy at Middlebury. all of whom provided invaluable expertise, and in the case of the first three, invaluable data that went into the ENOW tool. And finally, thank you to our project team. Kate Quigley and Charles Goodhue deserve a great deal of thanks for shepherding this project from inception 3 years ago to roll out earlier this spring. And on that note, if you have further questions or more specific questions, please feel free to reach out to any one of us. I'll open things up for questions.
So everyone feel free to pop your questions in the Q&A section. One question we got almost immediately is, will the slides be available after the presentation? I mean, I can say that the recording of this should be available, but Travis, do you plan on sharing the slides for this presentation? Or if we have them reach out to the library seminar email, would we be able to pass those slides along?
Yeah, I'm sure that we'd be able to share those slides.
Great, good to know. Thank you. So we'll give it a couple more minutes in case anyone is typing. One question I had was there anything that you couldn't quite fit into the presentation that you were especially excited about, or like hoped to mention? Or do you have a favorite question that you receive when talking about this?
Let's see. I'll defer to Charles on the favorite question, because you've presented on this a lot more than I have.
That's a great question. I think a lot of people do ask about the process and what worked, what didn't work in terms of engaging stakeholders, again, over a long time. And I think when Kate sort of thought about how to do this project well, she added a lot of time in to the schedule for stakeholder outreach, which was a really great and important idea. And in fact, in the end, we probably almost could have used a little more time with a few stakeholders, but we were able to do kind of very broad workshops at the beginning where we found the time to find the right people. We were able to have kind of smaller workshops with small groups to really iron out what data is available for certain sectors, and that gave us more time to do the one-on-ones. So the ability, the resources to really reach out and really make connections and really find the best data and get some buy-in from local stakeholders was just a really key part of this project. And I think Travis put on earlier a lot of the people that had really large contributions to this project, but there were 10 times that who did help us with reports here and there or connecting us with certain people. There was well over 100 people that had very positive contributions to this outcome. So it was a great opportunity to meet people, a great opportunity to work with people, and it was a great process across all 5 territories and commonwealths.
And it looks like I am now able to share my screen. So as long as you can hear me, I think I'll go ahead and do that quick demonstration.
We can absolutely hear you. Sounds good.
Fantastic. All right, finally got that sorted. So the easiest way to get at some of the ENOW data that might be relevant to you is through our interactive ENOW Explorer tool, which you can get to through the Digital Coast website, which is maintained by our office, or by simply Googling ENOW Explorer, and that will get you there. When you hit launch, you're given the option of selecting a state, territory, or county. Let's do Guam again. And selecting there, the first page that you see is this landing page for employment in the total ocean economy. And this is the screen that you saw earlier, but with a bit more information than you were able to see on that screenshot. In particular, scrolling down to the bottom, you can see that that trend line that we mentioned a little bit later. Along the left-hand side here, you can toggle between from employment to establishments, if that's something of more interest, wages, contribution to GDP. For each one of these screens, you have not only the big total number associated with the ocean economy, in this case, contribution to GDP of about $500 million, but also a percentage at the top of this box that gives you some insight into what proportion of the territorial economy that is. So,
Hi, Travis.
GDP. Yep.
Hate to interrupt. I don't think we're seeing your screen change with you.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, now we're there. It's caught up.
Wow. Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you all for your patience, and thank you, Caitlin, for cutting me off mid-flow there. So, once again, along the top of the screen here, if you're interested in a particular economic sector, like living resources, you can get a bit more information on that. Tourism and recreation. And over on the right-hand side, you're given the opportunity to switch between years. For the territories, again, we only have 3 years of data available. For other parts of the country, we have a bit more. This pop-up on the right-hand side here is just letting you know that self-employment data is not available for the current data year in ENOW. So we do have a blank spot on those particular screens, but self-employment data is we will update that part of the data set as data becomes available. All right. So after all that struggle, I'll turn that screen share off and return to questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We have another question, which is, are there plans to continue to collect this data and report on it annually in perpetuity?
I can go ahead and answer that. Yeah. So we do plan to collect this data primarily because of our relationship with the U.S. Census Bureau. They will be providing a core data set for the 6 traditional main sectors, the core sectors as we've been calling them of ENOW. So will be able to provide those for the 5 U.S. territories. The additional data of the supplemental data, as we call it, of government, research and education, and the utilities, that will be contingent upon funding. The utilities data we should be able to replicate each year, but it's a little bit uncertain. So we plan to try to replicate that each year because there is a data set that we might be able to rely on. We have some connections in each of the territories, and as long as we're able to keep our relationship with those folks, we should be able to replicate that year after year. So it's a little bit up in the air with regards to government and research and education, a little more up in the air. So, but yes, we should be able to replicate this on an annual basis. When the state's data comes out, the territory's data will also come out.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kate. I'll give it a couple more minutes in case there are any more questions being typed up. Awesome. Well, it looks like there are no more questions. Thank you so much again to Travis, Charles, and Kate for their wonderful work and for bringing it to all of us. If anyone has any further questions, I'm sure you can reach out to library.seminars@noaa.gov and we can direct you to the right answers. Or I believe they shared a slide with everyone's emails on it earlier, if you caught that. Thank you again to our presenters and for everyone tuning in. Have a good rest of your day wherever you are.